Articles and Thoughts on Vedanta by Sri Sachidanandendra Saraswati Swamiji, Adhyatma Prakasha Karyalaya, Hole Narsipura. In this, we have already seen 40 articles, 40 points uh, among aids to reflection on Vedanta. So, 41st today. Now, in the previous session, what we have seen, let us see it first, the gist, last point, and then continue. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. ध्यानं चिन्तनं यद्यपि मानसं तथापि पुरुषेण कर्तुम् अकर्तुम् अन्यथा वा कर्तुं शक्यं पुरुषतन्त्रत्वात्. ज्ञानन्तु प्रमाणजन्यं प्रमाणञ्च यथाभूतवस्तुविषयम् अतो ज्ञानं कर्तुम् अकर्तुम् अन्यथा वा कर्तुम् अशक्यम्. केवलं वस्तुतन्त्रमेव तत् न चोदनातन्त्रं नापि पुरुषतन्त्रम्. Dhyana or meditation, while it is mental, can be done, undone, or even done quite otherwise by a person. It is entirely dependent upon the will of the person. Jnana, knowledge, dhyana or meditation can be done like that. But jnana or knowledge, on the other hand, is born out of the function of a pramana or some means of valid knowledge, and pramana, a pramana has for its object something which actually exists. So, knowledge cannot be voluntarily done, undone, or done quite the other way. For it solely depends upon the nature of a thing and does not depend upon any injunction or the will of a person. So, this injunction or chodana tantram is for the karmas, depends on the kartru or the doer. It varies for different doers. And this Purusha Tantram or the will of a person, that is for upasana or worship, that also differs from person to person, from doer to doer. But this Vastu Tantram or the nature of a thing, that does not change. Knowledge regarding the nature of a thing, it should be because the thing is permanent, so it cannot change. So the knowledge regarding the nature of a thing, the nature also, it should not change. So it won't change from doer to doer or from worshipper to worshipper, like karma or upasana. It was the last saying. Now in the 41st point, in the above cited excerpt, Shankara is drawing our attention to a fact of utmost importance, which students of Shankara's Vedanta are apt to leave unnoticed. Upasana, meditation, is a voluntary function of the mind, but all mental modifications are not voluntary. Feeling hot or cold, for instance, is not voluntary, but we may will and sometimes can ward off the effect of these feelings if we so desire. Similarly, knowledge is a modification of the mind that is born of its own accord when we use some means of knowledge. To open our eyes and look at anything is voluntary, but the knowledge of some color is born in our mind necessarily as the effect of the will out of the organ of sight and of the object. Next, 42nd point. The Vedanta Mimamsa of Badarayana, as interpreted by Shankara, is not merely an exegetical work interpreting the Upanishadic texts in accordance with the principles enunciated by the Purva Mimamsa of Jaimini. For according to the tradition represented by Shankara, the Upanishads do not purport merely to lay down certain injunctions of rights and to prohibit certain acts with the Nisheda, which result in pleasure or pain, Sukha Dukkha, ensuing in the other world. They also intend to reveal the nature of Brahman, a self existing entity. For the same reason, this traditional school differs from uh, those who think that all Upanishads enjoin some meditations, and those that think that some of the Upanishad texts reveal the nature of Brahman or Atman as an object of meditation, which yields the release either after the fall of the body or here alone after wiping of avidya. And finally, it differs from those who think that all the Upanishads teach Brahman with or without attributes, only to urge the seeker after final release to dissolve all multiplicity in order to realize the real nature of Brahman. The one unique feature of Shankara's traditional interpretation is that it holds that the main purport of the Vedantic texts is to reveal Brahman or Atman by culminating in the intuition of Brahman without any intervention of any action to be done either before or after that intuition. Accordingly, Shankara sums up the discussions in his Bhashya on the first four sutras of Vedanta Sutras. Thus, एवं तावद् वेदान्तवाक्यानां ब्रह्मात्मावगतिप्रयोजनानां ब्रह्मात्मनि तात्पर्येण समन्वितानाम् अन्तरेणापि कार्यानुप्रवेशं ब्रह्मणि पर्यवसानम् उक्तं सूत्रभाष्य 115. Thus, it has been stated that all Vedantic texts have the one aim of leading to the intuition of Brahmatman, that they all coverage towards the Brahman by the unity of thought connection, even without the interposition of something to be done. Introduction to 115. Badarayana has defined Brahman, that's 43rd point, in the second sutra as Janmadhyasya, that is Brahman from which emerge the birth, sustentation and dissolution of this universe. While the face value of the statement apparently points to the cause of the birth, etc., of the universe, it is obvious that Upanishads do not really aim at pointing to an actual cause. For Shankara describes the nature of the universe thus: अस्य जगतः नामरूपाभ्यां व्याकृतस्य अनेककर्तृभोक्तृसंयुक्तस्य प्रतिनियतदेशकालनिमित्तक्रियाफलाश्रयस्य मनसाप्यचिन्त्यरचनारूपस्य जन्मस्थितिभङ्गं यतः सर्वज्ञात् सर्वशक्तेः कारणात् भवति तद्ब्रह्म इति वाक्यशेषः. That cause from which the birth, sustentation and dissolution of the universe emerge. This universe, which is differentiated in name and form, consisting of numerous agents and experiencers of the fruits of action, which is the support of acts and results regulated by uniform space, time, and causality, whose invention is not even conceivable by any mind. That cause is Brahman, has to be supplied to complete the proposition implied by the aphorism. Obviously, the universe, which comprehends time, space, and causation, as well as agents who achieve something in harmony with the laws governed by time, etc., can never be taken to be real effect of a cause in the primary sense of the word, and no valid means of reason can ascertain the real nature of such a source. Hence, Vedantins hold that the only possible means of knowing such an existing entity can be only a transcendental revelation which culminates in a direct intuition, Sakshad Avagati. But the Sankhyas and the others taking the literal meaning of the words existing entity, Bhutavastu, and cause, Karanam, have made two mistakes in the interpretation of the sutras. In the first place, they think that Brahman, being an already existing entity, must be ascertainable by some ordinary means of valid knowledge. Parinishthidam vastu pramanaantaragamyameva. And in the second place, they have been misled by the word cause, karanam, to think that the universe has really a cause, and therefore the Shruti must be taken in the light of a verbal testimony of some someone who can corroborate the inference as a witness. 44th point. The unique teaching of Shankara Vedanta is that all Vedantas or Upanishads uniformly purport to teach reality or Brahmatman, the infinite self of the whole universe, inclusive of each of the individual selves in it. Other teachings such as Vedic rituals, meditation, the distinction between the higher and the lower Brahmans, the details of transmigratory life, eschatological experience of pleasure or pain in the other worlds are all from the empirical view and are subservient to the main teaching. The 45th point. The definition of Brahman as the cause of the birth, sustentation and dissolution of the universe serves a twofold purpose. While it is mainly intended to teach that the universe of names and forms, containing numerous agents and experiences of the fruits of their actions, is, from the paramarthic standpoint, eternal standpoint, essentially one with Brahmatman, it also explains how the Vedic teaching of Ishvara or divine being as the only cause of the universe is superior to other empirical teachings which have brought forward their own theories of the cause of the world. 46th point. In the first place, this Vedantic doctrine of the first cause of the world exposes the theory of the Sankhya's, who think that an existent entity like the cause of the world ought to be accessible to ordinary means of valid knowledge, and so they try to justify their own system which teaches that the universe is the outcome of the conjunction of Prakriti, primordial matter, and Purusha. According to this view, Prakriti is constantly active for the enjoyment of Purushas or selves and also for the release of Purushas who are dispassionate. All this has to be inferred. One peculiarity of this school of thought is to regard the Vedantic texts as verbal testimony. Vedantas are not an absolute independent means of knowledge, but they say these are only corroborative, like the testimony of an adept in the subject. 47th point. There are theologians who suppose, on the authority of their holy revelation, Agama, that God, the divine Lord, has to be inferred from the effect in the form of the universe as an efficient cause. The second sutra of Badrayana is, according to them, an authority in support of their theory. 48th point. There were the followers of Kanada who thought that Ishvara, God, is only the efficient cause of the universe, but the atoms are the real inherent material cause. So God is only Nimitta Karana, and these atoms, Kanas, are the Upadana Karana, material cause. They thought that the world was an ultimate effect of different processes of combination of atoms, etc. They also had their own Vedantic text in support of their theory. Badrayana, according to Shankara, had to refute all such misinterpretations and to show how Brahman is the only real cause of birth, sustenance, and dissolution of the universe. 49th point. The system of Patanjali, which adopts the main doctrines of the Sankhya's but accepts the existence of Ishvara also, has been refuted in the sutras, both in the first and the second chapters, because they also, like the Sankhya's, insist that their system has the support of Vedantic texts. 50th point. True, there are no followers of Sankhya's nowadays, but yet both these systems, the Sankhya and the Yoga, have been assimilated by a majority of orthodox smritis like the Bhagavad Gita and have texts which at first sight might appear to teach Sankhya and Yoga doctrines also, as those systems claim. There are Shrutis which seem to declare that the cause of the universe is known through these systems also. For instance, there is a text तत्कारणं सांख्ययोगाभिपन्नं ज्ञात्वा देवं मुच्यते सर्वपाशैः. Knowing the Lord to be that cause taught by Sankhya and Yoga, one is free from all bonds. Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Therefore, Shankara writes, Sati Satishvapi अध्यात्म विषयासु बह्वीषु स्मृतिषु सांख्ययोगस्मृत्योरेव निराकरणे यत्नः कृतः. सांख्ययोगौ हि परमपुरुषार्थसाधनत्वेन लोके प्रख्यातौ शिष्टैश्च परिगृहीतौ लिंगेन च श्रौतेनोपबृंहितौ. सूत्रभाष्य. While there are many smritis relating to Atman, an attempt has been made here to refute the Sankhya and the Yoga in particular, for those two are famous as the means to the highest goal of human life and have been recognized by orthodox scholars in Vedic lore and are even seemingly supported by Shruti texts. निराकरणन्तु न सांख्यज्ञानेन वेदनिरपेक्षेण योगमार्गेण वा निश्रेयसमधिगम्यते इति. श्रुतिर्हि वैदिकादात्मैकत्वविज्ञानादन्यत् निश्रेयससाधनं वारयति. The refutation, however, is undertaken here because ultimate good is never attained. Ultimate good or ultimate God is never attained either through Sankhya or the practice of yoga independent of the Vedas. The Shruti indeed negates every means of the highest good other than the Vedic wisdom of the unity of Atman. Dvaitino hi te Sankhya yogascha natmaikatvadarshinaha. These Sankhyas and Yogas are only dualists and not teachers of the unity of Atman. Next, 51st point. Badarayana undertakes to refute the misinterpretation of the Sankhyas and determines the correct interpretation of the disputable or doubtful passages in the first chapter. He also explains away all the objection of the Sankhya's against the Vedantic text and Vedantic system in the second chapter, and he adds a rational refutation of that system, and thus makes his refutation complete. 52nd point. We have seen why the Sankhya has been chosen in particular for refutation by Badarayana according to Shankara. At the close of the refutation of the Vaisheshikas, the propounders of the atomic theory, Badarayana's sutra runs as follows: Aparigrahachatyantamapeksha 2.17 Vedanta Sutra. And Shankara remarks, the doctrine of the Pradhana as the material cause of the world has been incorporated by Vedic scholars like Manu in their writings because it is useful in supporting views like the Satkaryatva, the previous existence of the effect in the cause. This theory of atoms, however, has not been accepted by any orthodox writers in any respect whatever. It has to be altogether ignored by the followers of the Veda. And in introducing his criticism of Buddhism, Shankara writes as follows: we have observed that the system of the Vaisheshikas should not be considered worthy of notice because it is beset with the fallacious reasoning opposed to the Vedas and never accepted by the Orthodox. That being a partially nihilistic view, we are now going to show how all nihilism is unacceptable. Shunyavada. The Nastikavada. The above cited extracts should suffice to show how Shankara regards purely speculative systems without the assistance of the Upanishads, which uniformly appeal to direct intuition. 53rd point. While there are several conflicting systems of thought among the later Buddhistic thinkers, Badarayana, according to Shankara, takes only three principal schools for consideration. The Sarvastittvavadins, the realists who admit both external and internal things, the Vijnanastittvavadins, who admit the existence of internal ideas only, and Sarva Shunyatvavadins, nihilists, who deny all essence to things. This classification is based on difference of views or mental caliber of the followers. Pratipatti Bhedat, Vineya Bhedadva. 54th point. The first group admits the existence of both the external elements and their products on the one hand, and the internal chitta and mental factor on the other. They say that the atoms of earth and other elements constitute and produce the gross earth also. Similarly, the internal rupa, skandha, color, Vijnana skandha giving rise to the several organs and objects. The Alaya Vijnana giving rise to egoity, and the Vedana skandha giving rise to feelings. Samjna skandha producing concepts, and the Samskara skandha, which are factors producing emotions. The main defect in this doctrine is that neither of the ultimate varieties uh, of effects is possible, simply because neither the atoms nor the skandhas are sentient, and no constant sentient experiencing self or ruler is admitted by the school. And awareness is not possible, since it depends only on bhautika form, etc., and the organ of sight, etc., on the effects of combination are produced. Even if consciousness comes into existence independently, it would never cease to appear. The so called ashraya on which all these depend is indefinable as either different or not different from these. And since everything is held to be momentary, in which activity itself is impossible, and consequently the effect of combination, either elements or the effects of the five skandhas, cannot possibly come into existence. 55th point. The teaching of the S.S.SwAmeeji, as explained by Buddhists themselves or as explained by Shankarites, is rather difficult to be understood precisely, but it is sufficient for our purpose to see that the teaching with regard to bhutas, elements, that their atoms are to combine and produce bhautikas, products of elements, color, etc., objects, and the organs of sense, such as the eye. Similarly, the five skandhas groups are supposed to combine and produce something within the body as the locus of all human behavior. Now, Shankara's criticism of this doctrine is chiefly concerned with pointing to the defect that no individual experiencer or a ruler is admitted here who could initiate this combination. Neither the flaring of the chitta nor the ashraya or alaya vijnana can be supposed to set up the motion or activity in these two cases, since they already presuppose the combination. Moreover, activity is the function of the individuals of each group, and that cannot be conceived in the case of atoms or skandhas, since they are all presumed to be momentary, for that which functions must need exist before and also at the time of the function. As a consequence of the absence of combination, all mundane life depending on this combination would cease to exist. 56th point. Besides postulating the combination of momentary atoms of the four dhatus, earth, etc., and the momentary skandhas, the Sarvastittvadins hold the doctrine of the Pratitya Samutpada. Pratitya Samutpada. This is the doctrine of the successive causation of avidya, etc. In a series where each preceding item necessarily gives rise to the next one. Avidya is nescience, misconception, which takes momentary things to be permanent. Samskara, attachment, hatred, and delusion. Vijnana, self consciousness. Nama, the four dhatus. Rupam, four colors. Shadayatanam, the group of six sense organs. Sparsha, contact of Nama, Rupa, and organs. Vedana, feeling or emotion. Trishna, thirst or hankering. Upadanam, activity. Bhava, virtue and vice. Jati, birth. Jaramaranam, aging and death. Shokaha, grief. Paridevana, lamentation. Dukkha, pain. Durmanastha, dejection. and other effects invariably happening in cyclic order repeatedly. All these are momentary and insentient, and yet can set the life process going on without the need of any individual soul or ruler. It is very uh, exclamatory or very suspicious or wonderful. 57th point. There are two steps in Shankara's refutation of the doctrine of Sarvastitva-vadins. The first step is to concede that Pratitya Samutpada is possible, that the links in the chains of causation do give rise to the birth of each of the succeeding effects. For example, Avidya being there, Samskara is necessarily born, and Samskara being there, Vijnana is sure to take its birth, and so on. But even after conceding the possibility of this chain of causality, there is no explanation of how an aggregate of all these links can take place. It cannot be presumed that the continuous birth of these links in succession necessarily implies a combined effect, and the aggregate is a necessary presupposition, since the serial chain of causation cannot happen without the aggregate. For even so, you have to explain how the aggregate itself comes to be. For even according to Vaisheshikas, who postulate permanent atoms and experiencing egos, who can be supposed to be support of the effects of good or bad deeds, we have seen that an aggregate cannot be accounted for an arising out of atoms as arising out of atoms. How much less plausible should it be in the case of nihilists who take all atoms to be momentary and grant no individual selves that may be supposed to be the locus of the effects of the merits or demerits of a past deed. 58. If, on the other hand, you think that avidya, etc., are themselves the cause of aggregate, we ask how aggregate is Dehatma, Dehadi Sangata. We ask how these avidya and other causes which are born from the presupposed aggregate be the cause of that very aggregate. Nor can it be insisted that in the beginningless mundane life the aggregates themselves recur continuously like a stream as well as avidya, etc., which abide in them. You will have to grant that the bodies which have this locus successively are either as a rule exactly similar to the preceding ones or dissimilar. If they are uniformly similar, then a human being cannot take up a god's body or any animal's or plant's body. If there be no uniformity of similarity, on the other hand, a human being could become an elephant in a moment and turn into a divine being or a man back again. Moreover, 59th point, no permanent self being admitted to exist. According to this school of thought, the repugnant conclusion would follow that experience of pleasure or pain has to be attributed to experience itself, and release too would be for its own sake. For if it be granted that enjoyment of life or release is for one who is distinct from either, then the Buddhist will have to abandon his doctrine that everything is momentary. 60th point. Now we arrive at the second step of the regulation. We have so far granted that the Pratitya Samutpada, the chain of causation of momentary attributes, is possible, and our contention has been only that a combination of the constituents cannot be explained. But strictly speaking, that causation itself, the birth of the succeeding link after the previous one, is not possible at all. For this school maintains the absurd theory that the previous moment is gone when the subsequent moment comes into being. How can anyone think of the relation of cause and effects between two things which do not simultaneously exist? If, however, it would be supposed that there is positive activity of the previous moment before it disappears, and hence it can very well transfer its nature to the effect, then the doctrine of momentariness will have to be abandoned. If, however, the relation of causality can be supposed to subsist without the transmission of the nature of the cause to the effect, it will have been considered that there is no causal relation between any two things whatever. Moreover, we have to explain that what is meant by birth and cessation. Are they identified with the essence of the things or distinct states of these things? In the former case, if it is the essence of the things, there would be no meaning in saying that a thing is born or destroyed. For essence, birth and cessation would be synonymous terms. If birth and cessation be supposed to be distinct from the essential nature of a thing, then the existence, birth, and cessation would presuppose three distinct moments which this school is holding. The doctrine of momentariness would not, of course, allow. So, 61st point, the doctrine of momentariness cannot explain how one momentary link can be the cause of the succeeding link. If it is thought that the effect can arise even without the cause, it would go against the dogma that chitta and chaitas come into being owing to four kinds of causes. Moreover, it will have been granted that anything might be born anywhere. If, however, it be granted that the cause does exist until the effect is born, then the doctrine of momentariness will have to be given up. We shall reserve our remarks with regard to the other views of Buddhism. Um, this is the 61st point. Next, 62nd point we shall see in the next session. Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Sadguru Charanarpitamastu, Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, Om Tat Sat, Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, Sajjana Santu Nirbhayaha, Harihi, Om Tat Sat.